Hey there, welcome back. I'm Laura Williamson. Welcome to Bear Fitness. Thank you for joining me today. Today is going to be another exciting show. We have special guest. Oh, wait, I didn't tell you what I do. I'm a Pilates instructor, a personal trainer, and health coach extraordinaire. So if you ever feel up for it, come visit me at my studio at Stoneham, at same name, Bear Fitness. But welcome, 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 and welcome to our guest, Allison Mader. Allison,
Hi,
or
thanks for
Allie.
having me.
Allie,
Allie?
or
Yeah,
Allie,
yeah.
welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you here. You don't understand how excited I am right now. We were chatting before we started,
Mhm.
but we're gonna jump right in. But before we do, um, tell us about your business. Where are you coming from? What's the name of your business?
Well, I am Allie, and
Mm.
my business is Transform Your Table Nutrition and Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
And I work out of my home in North Andover, but I also work virtually anywhere in the United States. But
Okay.
I meet people in person as well, so I can see anybody anywhere. But my business is, I am basically very passionate about food,
Mm-hmm.
the harmony of food and your body and your mind and your spirit and your taste buds and healing your body from the inside out.
I love that
In a nutshell.
harmony of food.
Yes.
Harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's already exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's do it. How many years have you been in the industry? Tell us. Start from beginning.
Well, nutrition, health, wellness. I've been doing that for a little over 12 and a half years.
Okay.
My business, I have been doing that for about 2 years.
Okay.
So I've been teaching health, wellness, and nutrition education for about 10 years before I started my business.
Okay. Now you said you were teaching. Were you in a school teaching?
I was teaching nutrition, health, and wellness and culinary arts at the high school level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating. Now,
Yeah.
have you always been interested in doing this?
You know, it's interesting. When I think back to being a kid and playing, I was always playing school. I
Mm-hmm.
had the whole school set up in my basement, chalkboard and all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back, I always wanted to be a health teacher. Random, I know, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what I always wanted to do. That's not what I started doing. I started as a social worker working in specialized foster care, and that was kind of my first route. Then I went into coaching. I was coaching gymnastics full time, recreational and competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved into education, health education, where I originally wanted to start. And then nutrition and furthering my degree fell right into line with that. It wasn't a second thought. It was just
Mm-hmm.
naturally aligned with what I was doing.
Okay. It sounds like you've already had a few lives and you're very young.
Yes,
You
I am.
know?
Not a day over 25.
Exactly. But okay. So that's where you started. So you specialize in nutrition. You were teaching. We didn't have this conversation, but I myself was a social worker when I first started out, when I came out of college, which was a very interesting job. Um, very challenging, but rewarding on a lot of levels too. But all that being said, tell us a little bit about who your clients are. Like, who do you work with? What's your demographic, so to speak?
So I don't have one specific client. Everybody comes in for a different reason
Mm-hmm.
with different goals, but the main goal, everybody has the same goal of wanting to feel good and they all have an investment in their health, but they all may be coming in for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that reason is a medical report from their doctor saying, hey, listen, you know what, you've crossed over from prediabetes to diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working together with their medical team, trying to manage that and needing work and help with me in learning how to put together meals and the education piece and the culinary piece together with their medical team, or somebody who has prediabetes and they don't want to cross that line, or people who have been former athletes and they want to continue to live a healthy life, or they've gotten past, gone out of that road and want to get back into being healthy again. And even teenagers who are navigating eating healthy, health autonomy, and figuring out how to get some independence so when they go out into the world on their own, they have the ability to have a healthy relationship with food and can do it in a healthy way and are able to navigate eating on their own.
Okay. I know that, you and I have we've had conversations about this, me as a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor, um, part of what I do also incorporates, nutrition and helping with food, nutrition coaching and counseling and so on and so forth. But I'm unable to, how do you say, I refer out
Correct.
under the circumstances of, if there is diabetes, pre-diabetes, and so on and so forth. And I find quite often that I will send people, I refer them or say, you know what, I'm probably not the best person to work with. I would recommend that you work with someone else. In my case, it would be sending them to someone such as yourself. But what I do know is it's not always so entertaining, one, if we go on the fun side. But sometimes it's not as based on my experience of what I've been told. I don't know it for myself. I haven't done it myself. It's also always not so informational. And I mean that in the sense of it's more or less of eat this, eat this, eat this, don't eat that. And it's like you're given a list and you go home and it's end of story based on what's been told to me. And again, I apologize if I'm not sure about that because again, that's not something that personally I've experienced with myself. It's just what I've been told by several different clients. But based on what we've discussed and what I know about you and what you offer, you make the difference as far as you kind of deal with people. You meet them where they are, one, but then it's like real world solutions that you're giving them, things that they can really do. And it's actually fun and it doesn't feel so arduous, like impossible to accomplish.
So the difference, there's one extra step in it. There's a coworker that I used to work with, and we worked side by side with each other, teaching health and physical education together, and we had that exact conversation about people leaving doctors' offices and healthcare providers with that list of here's all the things you have to do, but then the how and the implementation was always missing from it. And I always had the intention of giving that piece to everybody. That's what I was doing. I was teaching and giving that piece to everybody. And I knew that that was missing. And a big piece of that was the kitchen confidence and the culinary experience for people. And when you are leaving the doctors, especially if you have a prediabetes or diabetes or any kind of health desire to feel better, being able to translate that into the kitchen and into food, because food is medicine, being able to cook is key to long-term success. So I knew that I wanted to be able to take all that information and teach people how to cook it. Here's the foods that you have to eat, but here's how you eat them, and here's how you prepare them, and here's how you put a menu and a meal plan together so it works and so you can enjoy it and change things out. It's not just this benign list of here's 8 ounces of this food, a cup of this food, that's a very benign and elusive list that is very hard to understand. What I provide and help people figure out is here's a menu with recipes in it that fit into people's daily lives and works for them, that they can figure out here's a breakfast, here's a snack, here's a lunch, here's a dinner, with recipes that can be scaled to their families, to their lives, and they can go in and they can change things out with ingredients that they like, and is a practical application of what they really need to do and what they want to do in order to be successful.
Okay, so there's a couple of things. So there's just a whole lot that's happening here. But okay, excuse me. So someone such as myself, I'll be the first person to say I'm such a basic cook. If I even dare use the word cook, I make simple things. I'm a busy person. I do not have children. I don't have other people I'm responsible for. I mean, I have a husband, I have a dog. But I don't, it's just the two of us, 2.5 of us. Okay. So, I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem that difficult. He's a pretty simple eater also, but for those who have health and wellness goals, or they're trying to maintain or improve, you know, when you have to cook for other people, it can be a daunting task. Where do where do you start? How do you start? That's the first thing.
How do I start is I have a conversation to figure out what somebody's looking for. So I'm in a similar situation. I don't have a big family to cook for. So if I'm looking at a menu and I'm looking at what's in front of me, I'm going to pull up a recipe and I'm going to hit the plus button on my computerized online program and the minus and scale a recipe down to small servings. If I'm going to cook for a family of 4 or 6, I'm going to hit a plus button, scale a recipe up. So that's the first thing that's going to help anybody that I'm working with.
That's awesome.
That's the first thing. But you know, when you're cooking for a family with children, you're bound to have picky eaters. So I work with people to figure out what everybody likes food-wise, what they don't like, and help them build a meal plan that incorporates foods that people like, but they don't like, and put everything on the table that everybody's going to be able to eat.
Right.
Because in the end, my client is part of a family unit. The goal is for them not to cook one meal for themselves and then a meal for everybody else.
Okay. Because that was my go-to. I was like, oh, geez, okay, if I have picky eaters, what am I going to do? Like, either I'm going to eat what everyone else is eating, or I got to fix a separate meal, and that's tiring.
Yeah, no, everybody eats together. That's the goal, and we figure out how to do it, because being healthy and having long-term sustainable success means we figure out how to make it work for the long term.
Okay. All right. So now this is our beginning. How do we get family on board? How do we get everybody to kind of fall in, if you will, with the plan, with the program? Like, so we got to cater to, let's say we have this picky person, they don't eat chicken, they barely eat vegetables, but they want to eat something, and maybe they only want to eat mac and cheese. And then everybody else, you know, or maybe you yourself, you're pre-diabetic, right? Or diabetic. So now we have to minimize the amount of carbs, right? Maybe you can't have the mac and cheese. So how do you wrangle that? Like, how do you organize that?
It's work. I'm never going to sell that this is going to be an easy, quick fix.
Okay.
It's work. Making health changes, making long-term changes isn't going to be easy. Creating new habits and creating lifestyle changes, they're changes. And they're changes for yourself. And they're inevitably going to be changes for everybody in your family. But it's not undoable. It's absolutely something that anybody can achieve, but it's going to take effort. It's going to take work, and that's why I'm there to help people do it.
Okay, now we do this around a time where we're rolling into holidays, but it's not only holidays that are a challenge for people, because obviously, because of what I do, I run into the same thing. Like, I'm nervous about this party that I'm going to. I'm not sure how to eat for this, and then I have a dinner to go to, you know. And I mean, I give the basic, you know, like, and I think you mentioned it in one of these questions that I asked you, and some other a list of things of to-dos for people out there to take with you as you're sitting here with us and listening. But one of the things that I also add in is, yeah, if you could check and see what the menu is before you get there, that's great. But then something was interesting that question that I got was, I had a client who mentioned to me, she's like, yeah, but you know what happens is we do one big order when I go with friends, and then we all kind of have to eat the same thing. And my advice to her at the time was, well, what I've done in the past is usually when you have that type of order and there's maybe, let's say 6, 7, or 10 of you, not everybody eats the same way. So you kind of have to cater to the group. And usually there are a couple of people who might eat the same way. And then you have a discussion between the two of you and say, hey, what do you eat? I'll eat what you eat. Let's try to get this thing, and we share. And then that way, you know, try to balance it out and work that out. But in some respect, I feel like that can be, you have a little more control in that situation than you would if you went to a Christmas party or a holiday party of some sort. And then there's a plethora of food. And then it's just like, your eyes are big, like, oh my gosh, look at all the food.
Right.
So all that being said, and based on my experience, but yours also, what's your recommendation, excuse me, for people moving forward with special occasions, holidays, all of it, birthdays, whatever, graduations, the season, where, again, what do you think would be most helpful?
I think the overarching message is consistency over time
Mm-hmm.
is key.
Mm-hmm.
Special occasion is a special occasion. Enjoy your special occasion.
Mm-hmm.
A night of indulgence is not going to ruin your health
Mm-hmm.
overall.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to go out to a party and there's going to be a lot of food ordered that you wouldn't normally eat, enjoy your night and don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you do in between all that time is going to be what matters the most.
Mm-hmm.
That's the overarching message: consistency over time in what you do in between. If you're going out every Friday night with your group of friends, like that scenario you said,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to come up with different strategies on how you're going to manage that.
Okay.
And if that's something that you need to really figure out how to do, that's something that we figure out. But, with the holidays, in essence, the holidays are really only a few days out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy the traditions, enjoy your family, enjoy the foods that come up with the holidays, and release any feelings of guilt about the cookie platter and the charcuterie board and
Mm-hmm.
the champagne cocktails, and enjoy it and just have fun around the holidays. And then in between those holiday parties, stick to your regular health routine in
Okay.
between all of that time.
And that is your idea of consistency. If you're
That's-
consistent
Mhm.
throughout the rest of the year,
Yeah.
then these special occasions, these times shouldn't wreak havoc on all the work that you were doing previously.
They won't. No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Just to be clear, because
Yeah.
people might be listening to this like, well, geez, how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. I'm going to eat whatever I want, and then
Mhm.
I'm still not making any changes. But in other words, don't take for granted that you're just going to go and eat everything, because that's assuming that you're doing the work on the other side of that.
It's assuming you have an idea of consistency over time. You have a routine. You have health goals,
Mm-hmm.
and you're releasing any guilt over overeating. And if you do, then you do, and you move on from it. Having an unhealthy dialogue in your head, if you've overeaten,
Mm-hmm.
is probably creating more damage to yourself
Mhm.
than if you've just overeaten and then you move on from it.
But I hear you say releasing any guilt.
Mhm.
What's the best way for someone to do that? Because we know that's hard.
It is
We
hard.
beat ourselves up when
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I ate too much. I mean, I think we've all done it. I had too much, or I drank too much.
Mhm.
And then you wake up the next morning and you feel awful, right? But then it's just like, oh, what did I do? I just undid, or now it's just whatever is already sitting there, and now it's worse. And so what's the best way to tackle that? Because now that's mindset, right? Now
It
we're
is.
rolling into that.
It's mindset, and that takes work because we're so conditioned to have this negative mindset about food and the
Mhm.
right thing to do about food and diet, this constant diet talk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really working on changing the dialogue around it.
Mm-hmm.
My personal food philosophy is eat food, enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
eat as much whole, nutritious, as close to the source food as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to enjoy a cake from the bakery, not a whole cake, a piece of cake from the bakery, or a nice indulgent meal, enjoy it, fully enjoy it, enjoy every bite of it, taste it, and then move on from it. And just don't feel bad about doing that.
Mm-hmm. Now, self-control is an issue, right? And some people say, oh no, I can't do that. Like if I have the one piece, I got to have the other piece. I need another piece, you know?
So that ends up changing once the idea of food being off limits goes away.
Okay. Again, we go back to mindset.
So the idea of everything in moderation
Mm-hmm.
still puts the idea of food being off limits in some ways.
Okay.
So if food isn't off limits, then we don't feel like we need to overindulge because
Okay.
nothing is off limits. It takes a little bit of time, and it is this little bit of a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
But once we get in tune with what we're eating and what our body feels when we're eating, it's kind of amazing how it shifts.
All right. So I'm going through your list
Yeah.
here of some of the biggest challenges that people
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
around eating
Yeah.
during the holidays, special occasions, going out, being social, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so you start with, and you've already touched on this a little bit, constant diet talk.
Yeah. I know when I'm out in groups of friends, there's always somebody, more than one person, and not even in my group of people. You can hear it in other groups of people around and other tables, conversations about diets, weight loss, restrictive eating practices. I'm going to start this new thing tomorrow. Oh, next week, let me just enjoy tonight. All of that can be triggering. It sets you in the mindset of what you're doing right now
Mm-hmm.
is not okay.
Mm.
Enjoy what you're doing, and just enjoy it. Enjoy the food. Take away the diet talk.
Okay.
Just enjoy food. Enjoy your event.
And what about food policing? Speaking of talking around the table.
So I don't know if anybody ever has the feeling of, oh my gosh, we're going to be going to back home to our parents or to our grandparents and around everybody, and well, you have to eat some more food or have more of this, or are you sure you really should be eating this? And that creates more havoc, and that gives, takes away sometimes all the work that you have been doing, and that can create some havoc around your mindset as well, and that can be a stressor for people. And sometimes we don't need other people's opinions or thoughts about what we're eating and what we're doing. And what we can do is just say, I appreciate your input, thank you.
I've worked with people who've had, I think she called it at the time, food shaming. And she was like, well, how dare you shame me? Because the person asked her, like, should you be having another one of those? Like, should you? And she was like, well, how dare you shame me? And she was right. I mean, respect boundaries, I think. And I think people say things unsolicited thinking that they're helping you out when really the psychology behind that, for someone could be monument. I mean, it just, it can be so very, very, very profoundly debilitating for so many people. Like, again, I've been doing this for a while, and having worked with people who have eating disorders and things like that. It doesn't take much to trigger people.
No.
And I don't know how many ways that I can express that or say that. Like, you just don't know people's struggles.
No,
I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's very hard for somebody to be on the receiving end of it. And, when people are bringing that forward, it's usually, there's always their intention. Nobody knows what their intention is. Sometimes it's about their own stuff.
Right.
But if you're on the receiving end, just know it's not about you.
Right.
Easier said than done.
Right.
But that is a struggle. And just know going into group situations that could happen, and just be prepared with a response of, thank you, I appreciate your input, but I'm happy with this, or no thanks, I'll take something to go. I don't need to eat anymore. Give me a to go box. I'm happy to take some with me.
And now that we're here, I like to, speaking of, the challenges, emotional eating. For some people, food is medicine. We've talked about that. It's how people can self-medicate, understandably, especially as you mentioned, like culturally. I'll give this as an example: is you fall, you scrape a knee, you're offered a cookie, or you have something to eat, or a popsicle, or whatever have you, or you just feel overwhelmed, and you go and you have that bag of chips, for comfort, for whatever reasons. And again, this conversation is not meant to call people out. It's just to let people know that you're not isolated, you're not alone, and you're not the only person who goes through or is going through this. And there are ways to work through it. and there are people to help. And that's why we're here talking about some of these things, because at the end of the day, we all deserve to be happy and content in some way, i.e. to heal in some way. And that's what we all are trying to do. We're trying to heal and get through it in the best way that we know how. But now, emotional eating, backing up a little bit, coming back to the matter at hand, there are emotional triggers and so on and so forth. And you mentioned that actually here.
Yeah, that can be, some of the stress around the holidays, seeing people you're not used to seeing, that can lead to emotional eating. It happens.
Yeah.
Just move on from it and then get back to what you're consistently normally doing.
But what if you can't consistently do what you normally do? Because you also mentioned if there's a lack of routine.
So the lack of routine is going to happen during the holidays.
Okay.
And knowing that that's going to happen, your regular meals are going to happen. If you know all of this stuff is going to be happening, these are just some of the challenges that are coming up during the holiday season, then you can go into things with a plan in mind. When I work with people and when I have clients, these are things that we talk about, and we say, all right, these are, Thanksgiving holidays coming up, and this is some of the things that we talked about with clients. Here are some of the things that we can do to navigate ahead of time for Thanksgiving. What are some of the things that you anticipate happening? Here's how your routine is going to be different. You're going to be traveling across the country. How do you want to plan for airport travel? How do you want to plan for being in someone else's home? And coming up with some of these things ahead of time, being proactive instead of reactive, and knowing different strategies. It's just being proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, which can be challenging.
It is challenging.
Yeah.
Awareness is key.
Is key. What about social pressure? And I'm on the opposite end, partially because I do what I do, and I've been doing it for a long time. So for example, like I have found in the past that when I travel, let's say to family, I find that my cousin will take me shopping. We'll go she'll say, let's go grocery shopping. And then we'll go shopping, and then she'll load up the cart, and with all these, she'll throw salmon in the cart, she'll throw vegetables in the cart, and she'll say, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that, we're trying to be better about this and better about that. So for me, obviously, I feel good, and I understand that is not the case for most people.
Right.
I get that because, again, I've been in this industry almost 20 years now, right? So for them, it's an awesome opportunity to take advantage of me being there and ask me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But I do remember times where I would travel and I'd say, I haven't eaten this morning. Can we stop and pick something up? And then I have to make a choice, like, okay, there's only muffins and there are only donuts and there are only, like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to starve, right? But what you say is true. It's like, well, I know that I've been pretty consistent and, I make the best choice I can at the time. Maybe I just have an herbal tea, which most places have, or a decaf tea, even if it's only black. And then, you know what? I actually have the muffin, and I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, social pressure also goes to sometimes when you're eating out, and going back to the scenario that you gave of a client going out with friends, a strategy could be going into a restaurant and ordering first, going in, having an idea of what you want to eat, and knowing and ordering first, because if you order first, you've already set your intention, you know what you're going to get. If you go and you listen to everybody else order, then you may be pressured, and pressure may be a strong word, but you may be influenced by what everybody else is ordering, and then you change your mind. And that's actually a research-based conclusion there. But there's social pressure to conform to what people are doing, and the same thing goes with alcohol. If you're going in thinking, I'm not going to really drink, and you just want to have water, but then everybody else is having a glass of wine or a cocktail, then you may just do that, not because there's implicit pressure, but you just subconsciously feel the pressure to do it.
I find one thing that I have recommended to people in the past is, if you're going to be around alcohol and that's going to be a challenge for you, I usually say to people, mix up your alcohol, because I find that if you have a cup in your hand, I feel like that makes a difference. For example, If you order your drink, your wine, whatever that might be, and let's say you finish that drink, either nurse that drink. And I remember back in the day, it'd be a big deal, like, oh, how long you've had that drink? Is this, you still on your first one? And I would say, well, you know what? Um, why don't you get yourself some water, throw a lemon in that, and into, have one and one, and take your time. Don't rush. Savor what you're drinking. Take your time. That has been, for me, my recommendation to people who have challenges with alcohol and they're not going to be. And another thing that I have recommended to people is, you know what? Most people say, my mother used to tell me, don't go anywhere hungry. And that includes parties. So I find that if I've eaten before I go, I'm going to eat less usually. I'm pretty full, so I'm not going to drink as much. I'm not going to eat as much. But again, these are some of the things that I actually grew up with, and these are some of the things that I pass on as a tool. I'm not saying it has to be this, but I think the more information people have, the more tools people have in their toolbox, then they can make choices that better suit them when the time comes.
Yeah, the alcohol piece, always having, one drink and then a glass of water. I have great mocktail recipes. So if people want to not drink, but still have a fun drink, mixing up some great mocktails is always a fun thing to do. And that still makes you feel like you're part of the crowd. That's always fun.
And the guilt. You mentioned the guilt earlier, and you said try not to be too hard on yourself. Give yourself a little grace there. We touched on it, but I want to bring it up again only because it's prevalent. And a lot of people have a hard time with that, and they hold that. And then what happens is they turn around and they eat even more, because then it's like, well, I failed. So, it is what it is, and move forward.
The dialogue that we have for ourselves is often so much worse. Well, it is not often. It is so much worse. And the criticism we have is so much worse than what we would ever say to anybody else. And this is not an idea that came from me. It came from a book that I read. But I always like to say to people, imagine the dialogue that you're having to yourself, and you're saying to yourself in those words, you're saying it to somebody who's sitting next to you. And if you wouldn't say what you're saying to the person, what you're saying to yourself to the person next to you, then stop saying it to yourself.
Right.
So pretend you're talking to somebody on the couch next to you with what you're saying. If you won't say it out loud, stop having those words for yourself.
Right.
And try and let go of that guilt and that criticism.
Now, again, you have so much good stuff here. Like I can't even. Let's give them a little more advice, because I feel like we need 2 shows for this, because this is such valuable information that you are giving. I mean, you even talk about some great choices and ideas as to what people can do to stay on track with some of their wellness and some of their goals and so on and so forth. You have listen to your body. We touched on this, but choose foods you actually enjoy. And I mean, you run through the list here. Actually, I'll go through the list quickly, and then you can maybe focus on a few that you really speak to you. But you say, listen to your body, choose foods that you enjoy, savor each bite, stay hydrated, give yourself permission to indulge, balance your plate, no food rules, be flexible, be kind to yourself, socialize away from the buffet, and you already said plan ahead, and then listen to your cravings.
I like to listen to your cravings. If you're craving a particular food, honor it. Denying yourself you're gonna feel unsatisfied, and then it's gonna backfire after. If you think about, if you don't eat what you really want to eat, what ends up happening later is you may end up snacking later in the day,
Mhm.
then you may end up binging even later in the day on something else that you didn't want to eat, and then you're feeling worse after that.
Okay.
Worse because you've overindulged and your belly just feels overly full on stuff that you didn't want to eat.
Right.
If you just ate what you wanted to eat to begin with, it would have taken away all of that. Just listen to your cravings.
Okay.
If you want that chocolate cake, if you want those gingerbread men, eat them. Enjoy it. Enjoy the season. Have fun.
Okay. Give us one more.
Let's see. I mean, there's so many good ones.
They're all good.
I know.
mean, how about
you know what I like?
Which
Savor
one?
each bite.
Okay.
And take time to eat. I'm going to read the sentence. Take your time to eat, savoring each bite. Put your fork down between bites and engage in conversation to allow your body to register fullness. And this is more about mindful eating.
Mm-hmm.
So your body really can register the feeling of satiety and being aware of what the food tastes like, feels like as you're chewing it, as you're eating it, and you're understanding what you're eating and enjoying the full process of eating.
Okay.
And just being mindful of what you're eating.
Before we wrap this up, do you
Mhm.
have any other recommendations for our viewers out there?
I think grant yourself leeway
Yeah.
and be kind to yourself. I
Yeah.
think just enjoy your food traditions and your family.
Okay.
It's
All
the
right.
holidays. Enjoy yourself. Have fun. I think that's the biggest thing that you have to know is that health and nutrition is a year-long
Mm-hmm.
and lifelong journey.
Yeah.
The holidays go really from October, if we're counting Halloween, through December.
Right. In January, New Year's.
New Year's.
Forgot about
Yep,
New Year's.
yep.
And then we roll into other holidays that show up.
But they're really just a few days.
Yeah.
They're really a few days and a few parties. And so if we give ourselves the grace to enjoy, to have fun,
Mm-hmm.
and figure out how to manage the tools
Mm-hmm.
and learn what the tools are, we can be okay.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Allie,
you. I
for
appreciate
being
it.
here. Before we go, one big question. Do you accept insurance?
I don't accept insurance.
Okay.
Just because the breadth of the services I provide
Mhm.
don't meet the strict criteria that insurance requires for billing.
Okay.
But if you have FSA or HSA, a lot
Mhm.
of those programs can be billed through you can use those with my services.
Okay. Everyone, I think we covered a lot today. We took a little extra time today because, like I said, there was just so much that I think would be beneficial. Again, Allison, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And to all of you, come back again. We're going to have more guests to talk about the issues that are important to you and the issues that hopefully will help you. So thanks again. See you next time. I'm Laura. This is Bear Fitness, and take care.